Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome and wishes for a safe and fulfilling 2021 to all of you, each and every one of you from the Coaches for You family. So, Coaches for You is a community of coaches from different parts of the world who have joined hands to support society at large during these challenging times. My name is Rekha, and I am your host for the session today. We also want to let you know that the session is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube for future viewership. So, with this, I invite you for this interesting session on power of mindsets. And this is very appropriately the first webinar of 2021. And I'm sure it's going to show us how we can set the tone for the year. So, take the session forward. Let me invite Mahrukh Bandorawala. Mahrukh, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rekha. So, Rekha asked me to introduce myself. I know a lot of y'all, a lot of y'all already know me, but a little bit about me, and a little bit that's not maybe on LinkedIn. I'm an HR professional. I have over 25 years of experience, an OD consultant, facilitator, coach. I'm also very passionately involved in various women's movements. I'm on the board of a couple of NGOs that work in the space of women's empowerment. I also like to call myself an adoption evangelist because I also do a lot of work in that space. I'm also a professional baker. I read 3 to 4 books a week, not always very erudite ones, I have to confess. Hey, Jansi, nice to see you. And as you can see, I love interacting with people, so I end up saying hi in between my introduction. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I wanted to kind of tell you a little story as to what got me into this space. Actually, parenting got me into this space. So I used to observe, I have 2 daughters, and as the session goes along, you will also get to know them a little better because I'll be sharing a lot of stories from my own life and from lives of famous people. And I observed something very interesting when they were growing up. My older daughter, while fairly academically inclined, um, was very enthusiastic every time I said, why don't you try out, dance, music, sports. She would always say, yes, 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 I want to learn TT. I want to learn badminton. And she was really bad at sports, really bad. She wanted to learn to play the piano. She didn't have a musical ear at all. She was very happy to go for art class, though she couldn't draw a straight line. And it was very interesting. So I said, she would try out everything very enthusiastically. My younger one came along and she was actually very talented. She was very talented in art. She was very talented in music, very good at sports. But every time I would ask her, would you like to go for, join a class? Would you like to hone your skills? She'd say, no, I will do whatever I have to for myself. And this kind of, bemused me. I couldn't figure out, here's someone who doesn't have a natural talent, has nothing to lose, I think, So she was very happy to be part of all sorts of things. And here's someone who's really talented and doesn't seem to want to hone that talent. And my explorations actually brought me to the whole concept of mindsets. And the seminal work of Carol Dweck on mindsets in her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. And yes, Viji, maybe we will. And I started reflecting on my own mindsets. And as we go along, we'll talk about the 2 mindsets that Carol Dweck talks about, which is a fixed mindset that actually hampers your growth and the growth mindset that facilitates it. And I started reflecting on myself. And I started saying, hey, where am I being fixed? What am I doing to push these children into a fixed or a growth mindset? So I started reflecting on myself as a parent, myself as a professional. And some of the insights and some of the learnings that I've had along this journey have been really mind-boggling. And I feel very passionately, which is why I feel very passionately about this subject. And while a lot of you may know a lot about this, I want to really share my experience today. While we talk about the theoretical framework, I'd like to share my own experiences along the way and experiences that I found happening around me. So, to start with, look at COVID, right? When COVID struck, Some people went into complete panic. They went into a complete, very, very anxious, very stressed out. Other people saw it as an opportunity to reconnect, an opportunity to revisit old hobbies, an opportunity to write a book like Priya, so many other things. A third set of people went beyond themselves and actually saw it as an opportunity to start giving back. Right? The way people went out and helped people who were suffering due to, lack of resources was incredible. Now, what was so interesting is the stimulus was the same, but the reactions were very, very different, right? And fundamentally, where was that coming from? Was something that I began to really think about. So with this, I shall start sharing my presentation. So I'm going to share 3 scenarios with you. And I'd like you to reflect on how would you react in this scenario? What are the feelings that would emerge? What are the things you would say to yourself? And what would you do? All right? And please use the chat box to share this. It's the first situation. You wake up late, you've jumped out of bed, you have to get your kids to school, you have to rush through your morning routine, only to find you've missed the school bus. Now you have to drop the kids to school. It's going to delay you further, and now you're low on fuel. I know, everything's gone wrong. Murphy's Law. What's going to happen? What are you going to do? How are you going to react? Let me stress you out further. Another stressful situation. Your boss calls you into his room. He's annoyed about some report you've submitted and he feels you've not researched it adequately. There were some errors. Damn, this day can't get any worse. But you seem to be valued, nevertheless. You've been given a large and highly challenging project. Stakes are high. It's not something you've done in the past, and this could make or break your career. How would you react in any of these situations, in all of these situations? Any reactions? What would be your first thought that came into your mind?
Mahrukh, would you like me to call out what people are saying?
Yes, please, because I can't seem to see the chat. Yes,
yeah, I got that, yeah.
Could you?
So someone is saying, John C is saying, let them sit at home.
I've done that to my kids, John C.
Yeah. Take a deep breath and do one thing at a time.
Okay.
Figure out what matters most now.
Okay.
Deep breath. What balls can I drop?
What balls can I drop? Okay. Okay.
First one, so Prakash says, first one, swear. Second one, he's an idiot. Third one, excited.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I like your honesty.
Yeah, that's true. Hold for a while and then react. Ask for help. Okay. Panic initially, then evaluate first, next, and do it slowly.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Do it slowly. I like that. I remember reading once, when in a hurry, do things slowly. Yeah. Very nice. Okay. Any other?
So then there is check with my neighbor if anyone can help for situation 1.
Okay. Okay.
Breathe. There's a lot of breathe and do slow. Then do what is important. Get agitated, but then take care of the situation. Bless the situation.
Interesting. Interesting.
Move from the situation. Yeah. Move from amygdala to neocortex.
Move from amygdala to neocortex. So I don't want to get into the whole amygdala hijack piece of the of neuroscience here, but yes, the initial reaction is the stress, the panic. Damn, I've done it again. And then there is a moment of, hang on, let me breathe, let me find a solution. And I'm obviously carrying coals to Newcastle today because I think everybody is fairly evolved. And the whole point is that when I look at a situation, what lens do I look at it from? Right? Do I look at it? Is it just a situation that needs to be dealt with, which I hear most of you saying? Or is it a reflection of me? Do I start labeling myself? Do I see it for what it is? Something that's gone wrong and needs to be fixed. Right? But how often we start saying, damn, I've done it again. This is what always happens. I can't really do this. We go in so often, there is so much of negative self-talk that also happens. And I'm very happy to see that in this group, it's really, while you acknowledge that there is stress, there is panic, there's also the ability to shift right? The ability to address the issue, right? So it's all about the lens. And what is this lens? This lens is nothing but our mindset, right? And how do mindsets get shaped, right? I don't need to go into what is a mindset, but fundamentally, mindsets get shaped by our experiences, our upbringing. I just love this story about mindset where there's this little boy and he goes to school, and it's very early, he's very small, he's not experienced school, so to speak. And the teacher says, let's draw a flower today. So he says, oh, I love drawing flowers. I see flowers in the park every day when I go to play. So he starts drawing lots of flowers, lots of colors and lots of shapes, big flowers, small flowers, pink flowers, purple flowers. And the teacher's coming around and she looks at him and says, what is this? He says, miss, this is a flower. And she says, what kind of flower is this? So he says, I see these flowers in the park every day. She says, no, 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 no. This is not the way you draw flowers. How do you draw flowers? I'm sure all of you learned in school, you draw a circle and you draw bumpty, 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 bumpty. 5 petals, no more, no less. A stalk, 2 leaves. Didn't we all draw flowers like that? How strange. We all saw different kinds of flowers, but we all drew the flower like that. So this little boy looks at this flower and thinks it's a very boring flower compared to his lovely flowers that he's drawn. But he says, okay, maybe this is the way I have to draw flowers. And he draws the circle and the bumpety, bumpety, bumpety. And so life goes on. The next year, he goes to the next class and he has a new art teacher. And the teacher says, let's draw flowers. What do you think the little boy does now? Do you think he's excited about drawing the flowers? Does he think about all the lovely flowers he can see in the garden? He draws the one circle. He draws the bumpety, 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 bumpety. That's his flower. And that's how so often our conditioning happens, right? That's how mindsets get stuck. That's how we get stuck in a particular mindset where we believe this is the only way, correct? Now, the point is, all of us have certain beliefs that we grew up with. Now, they could be enabling beliefs and they could be disabling beliefs. Just for a moment, reflect on your own beliefs. What are the beliefs you grew up with, right? I see this constant tug of war in my home. My husband grew up with in a home where hard work was a very strong belief. You had to be working all the time to be valued. Yeah. I would rather read my book. So there's a constant struggle in my house where he sees me reading a book and he'd be like, why aren't you doing this? So much work lying around. But to me, I look at him and say, but why don't you read a book? Why don't you sit down and read a book? And that's the thing about beliefs, and that's the thing about mindsets. Eventually, they all manifest themselves as behaviors and actions, right? Now, let's go a little further, okay? Before we go into the fixed and the growth mindset, I want to share a little story about Carol Dweck herself and what brought her to exploring mindsets. She says that her 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Wilson, made them sit IQ wise. Now, that would be unheard of in this day and age, right? But she's a fairly elderly lady. And she said it instilled in her a perennial fear of not living up to expectations, of not being smart enough. And that actually triggered her exploration into the world of mindsets and into how people deal with failure. And she came up with the whole concept of a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. She studied, her initial experiments were with children and later on with adults. And she gave a set of 4-year-olds a jigsaw puzzle to do. It was a fairly easy jigsaw puzzle, and they did it fairly quickly. Then she asked them, would you like a tougher puzzle? Now, interestingly, she found there was one group of children who wanted to stay with an easier puzzle to the extent they were willing to do the same puzzle again because they wanted to get it done and get it right and, perform. There was another group of kids who said, why would I want to do the same puzzle again? That just doesn't make any sense. I would want to do something a little more challenging. I would want to do something that's a little more exciting, a different puzzle. And she was very bemused by this difference between two groups of seemingly very similar children. And when she continued her research and did a lot of work at Stanford, etc., she actually propounded the whole concept of fixed mindset vis-a-vis the growth mindset. Now, what does this actually mean, right? When I'm when I'm operating from the fixed mindset, I'm fundamentally telling myself that I have a fixed amount of intelligence, a fixed amount of ability, a fixed amount of, capability, talent, right? And therefore, if I want to look good, I cannot push my boundaries because the constant thought in my mind is, what if I don't? What if I fail? What if I look stupid? What if I'm not perceived as smart enough? What if I feel that I'm not good enough? This is exactly what my second daughter was doing. She realized we saw a particular strength in her. We thought she was great at sports. If she were to push her boundaries, if she were to take part in competitions, if she were to go out and learn from people who are better than her, she may not always look as good as she did without that particular set of people around her. And that actually was pushing her into a fixed mindset. Whereas what does a growth mindset believe? The growth mindset believes that, you don't have it's not like a hand of cards that you've been given that you cannot draw any more cards from the deck. You can expand your intelligence. You can expand your capabilities. It's a very expansive mindset. And therefore the self-talk is, okay, so maybe I can't do it now, but I'll be able to do it later. I can work at it. I can improve. What's the worst that'll happen? I'll fail, right? I'll get up and I'll try again. My older daughter, because there were no preconceived notions of her ability, was able to say, what have I got to lose? I'll just go add something more to my kitty, right? Later on, I'll tell you where she got pushed into fixed mindset. So people with fixed mindsets actually see failure as shameful, as something you don't set yourself up to fail. And if you don't set yourself up to fail, you obviously don't take on challenges, right? You will avoid a challenge. You will avoid something when it starts getting tough. You will keep doing what you're good at, and you won't try to see what more you can do because there's always that fear of not looking good enough, right? Whereas people with growth mindset will embrace a challenge, will be willing to make mistakes. There's a very interesting thing about feedback. Um, when so a group of kids again were given a test, and after the test in Columbia University, they decided to map their brain waves when they were giving them the feedback. The children from the fixed group, the fixed mindset group, the brain activity only started or lit up, the brain lit up when they were being told how much they had scored. They were not interested in what the right answer was. They were not interested in tips to improve the next time. They were purely interested, have I made it? Have I made the cut? Do I still look smart enough? And everything else that could have actually got them higher was actually eliminated. They were not listening to that. On the other hand, the group from the growth mindset, very interestingly, they were not really worried about how much they got. Their brains lit up when they were told what the right answer was, how they could have derived the right answer, what they could do to actually improve in the future. A very interesting story about a coaching client of mine, and he was sharing an appraisal discussion that he had with his boss, and this has to do with failures. So he had a great year, and his boss said, "Yes, well, I'm happy with you, but I feel you could have done better." So this guy couldn't understand. He said, "What do you mean could have done better? I've maxed all my targets. I've done everything you wanted me to." So his boss told him, "You haven't failed in the last year." This guy was a little confused. He said, "What do you mean you haven't failed?" The boss said that in our organization, we value empowerment. We encourage people to push their boundaries. And you obviously haven't pushed your boundaries because you have not done anything that was a challenge that you couldn't achieve. You haven't taken any risks. You've played very safe. You've done everything you were supposed to do, but you have not gone beyond. And he said that was a turning point for him, where he said, that's when I realized that I need to go beyond what is my comfort zone. And the interesting thing is, this is not, nobody is completely fixed, nobody is completely growth. It is a continuum. And what is important is there are some things that trigger us, that actually push us towards fixed. There are some things that encourage us to be growth mindset, right? So the beauty is that okay, I won't say it's very easy, but because of neuroplasticity, our brain can create new neural paths. We can learn new behaviors. One of my biggest triggers to push me into the fixed mindset was the fear of failure. It's something that I've had all my life, right? And subsequently, I'll share how I'm trying to overcome it. But I realized that every time I felt that the task was too challenging, I would say, no. Let me maintain my image of being, bright or whatever. I don't want to fail. I don't want to take a chance. On the other hand, I was very open to feedback. When it came to feedback, it was fine. If I had to put in effort, I was fine with it. But fear of failure was huge. So challenges was always limiting. Recently, I heard somebody say that, whenever he's asked to do something challenging, he never says no. That was really an eye-opener for me. And I actually started practicing that, saying that, okay, let me give it a shot. What's the worst? What's the worst? Nothing is earth-shattering, right, at the end of the day. So I'd like you all to reflect on what could be your triggers. All of us have triggers. Could they be, when you're given a challenging assignment? Could it be somebody else's success? How does another person's success trigger you? Does it motivate you to do better? Or does it make you say, what rubbish? There's a very interesting story about John McEnroe. And while he was huge with effort, he was huge with challenges, every time he lost a match, he would play the blame game. There would be, he wasn't feeling well enough, or somebody came in his way, or the umpire did something, or something happened. It was so interesting to the point that in 1979, he lost the only mixed doubles match. And he never played a mixed doubles match again for the next 20 years, right? There's another story about him where after he retires, he buys this very fancy guitar and says he wants to learn to play the guitar. And he goes to listen to this very accomplished guitarist in a pub, thinking that, after the session, I'll actually go up to him and ask him to teach me. And that man is playing so well, John McEnroe gets so angry, he goes home and he smashes that very, very expensive guitar, saying, I'm never going to be able to do it. Why am I even wasting my time? So all of us have triggers. The beauty is that it's a continuum. So all of us can move. So take a moment, and I'm going to ask Rekha to run a poll. Just reflect on what are your triggers? What are the triggers that tend to drive you into a fixed mindset? Please ignore the growth mindset. We tend to get driven into our fixed mindset. Rekha, could you launch the poll, please? So interestingly, I'm glad I'm not alone. 50% say fear of failure is one of the triggers that pushes us into a fixed mindset. The next is making mistakes, and in a sense that is also related to fear of failure. Tough tasks is 19%. Exploring the unknown. Yeah. It's nice to see that there's only 13% are threatened by other people's success. I think that's also a reflection on this community, or all of you all. That other people's success, where it doesn't at least doesn't threaten us, while we may not, celebrate it. It's not a threat. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So shall we stop? Do I stop sharing the results, or do you?
And stop sharing.
Okay. So we can close that window.
Yeah. So, Maruk, there are a few questions which have come up, and there is a specific question about triggers which has come up.
Okay.
So would you like to take some questions now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Prakash is asking whether the triggers would be different for fixed or growth. He's saying the triggers would be different for fixed or growth mindset. Should we reframe the question?
This particular question that absolutely, we only ask for triggers for fixed. You're right, Prakash, which is why I said just ignore the growth mindset, please. Your triggers for growth mindset would be something that excites you, something you enjoy doing, right? So that would push you into growth mindset. Say, hey, this is a very exciting challenge. I'd like to explore this area further. You're right, Prakash. Thank you.
Right. There are a couple of questions related to mindset. Would you want to take them now? Or shall I keep them for later?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so there is a question saying mindset is equal to lens, perspective. How is it connected to shift? Should mind be set at all?
I don't know whether that's a play on words, but how we can shift it, we are going to talk ahead, right? So I'm not sure I've kind of understood the question completely, but should mind be set at all? The fact that we're saying it's a continuum tells us that it's never really fixed, right? Tells us that we do get triggered, and it's about, when we talk later about being aware of those triggers and what we do with those triggers, right? So you're right, it's never really set. It's not one point. We're constantly moving.
Right. So core of fixed mindset could be underlying fear is also a question.
It could be. It could be underlying fear. It could be voices that from your past. Where does the fear come from? Comes from some need. Comes from some need to maybe excel, need to, in our education system today, one of the things that also drew me to this is trying to create programs on growth mindset for children, for youngsters. What are we doing to youngsters in our education system, right? We are making them so fearful of exploring. They only have to deliver outcomes. They only have to get the marks. I told you I'll go back to some of the things that I talked about my daughter. My older daughter was very academically inclined, and I say was. But somewhere around 8th grade or 9th grade, she completely lost interest because she realized that all anyone was expecting from them was those 10 standard marks. And the questions, the curiosity, everything went for a toss. Which is exactly what happens, right? Today, why are so many children committing suicide? Why are children feeling so pressurized? Because we're telling them you have to show up in a particular manner. You do not have the scope to fail. You do not have the scope to explore something outside of the norm. And yes, so there is this deep fear that we're instilling both in our children, sometimes in our teams. How many organizations talk about innovation, but they punish failure? How can you punish failure if you're going to want to be an innovative organization? Right? We do this all the time. Both to ourselves as well as to people around us.
Right.
Okay.
So the last one, Maruk, and then we can move on, and I'll take the remaining questions later.
Okay.
So like with the time continuum, can I exhibit different mindsets in different aspects of one's life?
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. As a professional, I could have a growth mindset, but as a parent, I could have a fixed mindset.
Very true. That's an excellent question. And that's exactly what we do. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. Depending on our own conditioning, depending on what we grew up with, we actually have different mindsets and different triggers in different spheres of our life, right? I'll give you my own example. I feel sometimes our own examples are the ones we can relate to and people can relate to. They're the most honest. I'm always wary of taking up a professional challenge. Okay, ask me to do something completely different that I've never done before. I am like, no, I don't think I can do it. But I'm the same person who learned to swim at 37 and learned to drive at 45, and even tried to learn the piano at 47, at which I failed dismally, but the other two I mastered, right? So how strange. Why is it? Again, I have no fear of failure in my personal life, but in my professional life, I have achieved a certain credibility, which I'm a little wary of eroding, if you will, right? So you're absolutely right. It can be this way or that. And that's when you need to start getting aware of things, you know. And somebody asked me recently to do a workshop for their senior management on a topic that I intuitively know, but I'm not a mass subject matter expert. And then I asked him, I said, what is wrong with you? Why are you asking me to do it? And I have these conversations very often with my clients saying, why me? Why are you choosing me? Choose somebody else. How stupid, right? But I am like that. And this time I said, hang on, what are you doing? If that person has seen a certain capability, what's wrong with you pushing your boundaries? You know you can put in the effort. You know, it's never been a question where you've not been able to deliver. So why the fear? There is that fear of failure, right? So yeah, excellent question. Should we move on?
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, I'll end up, you know,
So
sari
let's
pol
move.
khul jayegi.
There are a couple more, but we'll take them towards
Yeah,
the end.
we are at 5:35, and I know you've given me a hard stop, but I may go a little ahead. All right.
Sure.
So we talked about our triggers. Let's spend a little time trying to understand what the hell do we do with them. One is to know, you know, that this is my trigger, but I need to start knowing what do I need to do. Okay. So the first thing is to learn to identify that trigger. Most of us stay in our fixed mindset when we get triggered because we've not listened to it, right? Recognize that dialogue. When I get a challenge thrown at me, my first instinct is that amygdala hijack that somebody, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this. Oh God, this is too hard. Learn to recognize this. Listen to it. Embrace it, if you will, right? And then tell yourself, that pause between stimulus and response, right? That stimulus and that's when you take that pause. Everybody, all of y'all said in the beginning, y'all talked about breathe. That's when you're recognizing that you have a choice to remain in panic and stress, or you have a choice to say, okay, what can I now do to address this particular situation? And how often can we do this? It's a journey. It's not something that I can do overnight. I can't start practicing a growth mindset approach overnight, right? But the minute I embrace it, I start realizing that, yes, I know this is a part of me, but I can also choose to leave this part behind. I can choose to disengage from it. Again, giving you my own example, I've always been a very fearful person, right from childhood. There are a number of reasons, and there's a whole, you know, whole bag full of stuff that caused me to be that way. The minute I realized that I tend to react from fear in most situations, I said, okay, let me embrace it. Let me accept that in most situations, I am going to be fearful. It's okay. Once I look at that fear, it's not so fearsome anymore, right? You look at fear in the eye, it ceases to be as fearful. It doesn't go away. Not for me, it doesn't. Okay. And slowly over time, I've realized that, okay, I'm going to get triggered. I'm going to be scared. Then I'm going to say, okay, what the hell are you scared about? Make a list, put it down. Let's see how we can address these things. So in embracing that, I slowly, and it's been a journey, and I'm not anywhere near the other end of the spectrum yet. But today, I will not walk away from things. I have become far more expansive in my thinking because I'm willing to take a good hard look at where I'm coming from. So let's look at this. If we're saying it's a journey, this journey also has, let's look at some strategies that can help us along this journey. Okay. So these are some strategies that are shared by Carol Dweck. The first, which I already shared in my own example, enabling self-talk, vis-a-vis disabling self-talk. I can't do this. I'm never going to be able to do this. I remember when my daughter was about 2 years old, she was in a creche, and suddenly I found her coming home and saying, I can't do this and I can't do that. And I was wondering where this is coming from. Then when I went to pick her up one day, I overheard the caretaker telling her, you are not going to be able to do this. You can't do this. And that's when I realized that's where it's coming from. So sometimes the voices in our heads are not our own. Sometimes the voices in our head are our own, but we've made them our own, right? So the question is, can I start catching my disabling self-talk, and can I actually start changing that talk to an enabling self-talk? Can I say, yes, this is going to be hard. I might fail at it, right? But why don't I at least give it a shot? Correct? The second one is the power of yet versus the tyranny of now. It's very interesting a very interesting example shared. A high school in Chicago, decided to do away with the grade F, which is failed, and they started putting on children's report cards, not yet. Now, in order to graduate from high school, they needed 84 credits. So you had the credits you had passed, and the credits you hadn't passed yet was not yet, it was not failed. And that power of yet is so empowering, because you may say, I don't know about this now, but I can read up, I can learn, I don't know it yet, which just opens up the entire future of knowing, right? Replace the word failing with the word learning. Does every situation have to be about success or failure? Yeah. There is so many. There's a saying that says, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, right? So can we really look at a situation where, okay, so I goofed up. Okay, so the webinar was not so great. Okay, so something happened. Okay, so I learned. Let me take feedback. Let me learn from people who are better than me. Let me figure out what I need to do differently, right? Depth versus speed. Another very interesting thing. My younger daughter had learning difficulties. She hated math. She couldn't do math. So her coping strategy was finish the sums as fast as possible. She was not worried at all about getting into the subject and understanding what the sum was about. She said, I finished first, because she decided that success in her math paper meant finishing first. And that was her coping mechanism, right? Um, we actually sat with her and created an entire methodology that she had to follow till it became a part of her, in terms of how she could replace speed with depth. She had to read the question at least twice. She had to make a list of, write down all the available information, the missing information. So there was an entire system created to support her, to move from this coping mechanism of speed to a more growth oriented mechanism of actually going into the depth. Value process along with outcomes. A lot of the time, how we praise children defines whether they get pushed into fixed or growth mindset. One of the biggest mistakes I made with my older daughter was telling her that she was very intelligent from very early on. What this resulted in was an unwillingness to apply oneself, an unwillingness to stretch, because there was excessive dependence on the intelligence, and effort of applying, studying hard was something that she thought she didn't have to do, because, my mother said I was intelligent right from when I was little. And repeatedly, this is shown, although it seems counterintuitive as a parent, repeatedly, through repeated experiments, Carol Dweck actually says that when you praise for ability, you're actually disabling the individual. Through repeated experiments, they found that when children were praised for, said, hey, you're really smart, you got a good score, their scores actually started coming down on tests. When children were praised for effort or process, along with the outcome, saying, hey, you seem to have done well, you seem to have studied pretty hard for this, or, you've actually worked, you've understood the concept and you've applied it in a very intelligent way, the chances of success and improvement became much higher. So it's very important for us to also understand, about how, with the best of intentions, how we can still maybe push people or push ourselves into a fixed mindset. Okay. So at this stage, I've thrown a lot of stuff at you. At this stage, I'd like you to reflect. reflect on your own triggers. Reflect on the various roles that you play in life. Where are these triggers showing up? Like we said, they tend to show up sometimes more in some areas of our life, more less in other areas of our life. In an organizational context, what is the role you play as a people manager, as a team member? Where do you operate from? How could you apply this? How could you create teams that are operating from a growth mindset? How can you create organizations that operate from a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset? In your personal context, parent, spouse, son, daughter, brother, sister, we all have relationships and we all have triggers in all our relationships, regardless of how compassionate, empathetic, etc. we are. What is it that you could take away from this session and actually apply these? Take a moment.
In the meantime, Priya had raised her hand. I think she had a question.
Yeah, Priya.
Yeah, Mahrukh. So you remember you spoke about in the earlier slide, you'd spoken about how your daughter went to school and she heard, from that coordinator there was saying something that you can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Very often the voices are not necessarily said to you. They could be said to your peers or around you.
Absolutely.
And the influence it has on that person impacts
Absolutely.
you too. You become almost like a residual smoker in that sense.
Very true.
In the room, you're not really the smoker, but yet you get the effects of that.
Very true. Very true. Very true. So when you have adults around you or people around you, speaking a particular language, even if it's not said to you, it still triggers that insecurity in you where you need to, in a sense, consolidate and, keep yourself safe because tomorrow it could be you.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. That's an excellent point. Thank you, Priya.
So I think some have started coming in. Learn to fail if I want something.
That's such a powerful one, no? We're so scared of failing. I know how it feels.
Yeah. Reflection should be used as a learning tool. Avoid gloating over success beyond the initial moment.
Avoid gloating. Okay.
Yeah.
Mahrukh,
you can celebrate your success, though.
Someone, I think Adhir wants to ask a question.
Yes, Adhir, please go ahead.
Hi, Mahrukh, how are you?
Hi, Adhir. I'm good.
Yeah. So the topic is very much of interest to me. What I have also read is what we tell children in their younger ages, over a period of time, it forms a core belief in them and they grow with those core beliefs. Absolutely. And they believe that what they have been hearing in their younger ages is right. And it's very difficult for them to, shed off those core beliefs in the later part of life.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about it?
It's absolutely true. In fact, all my examples are come from all the wrong things I said. And it's the funny thing is while when you gave this example, we have visions of patriarchal father, autocratic father, strict mother. It's not even that. It's well-meaning, well-intentioned, compassionate parents, and we still make the mistakes. You see, like I said, what are we praising for? I must share this with you. My younger daughter, who has educational learning challenges, I completely switched and I said, I said, let's only focus on process praise. And her executive skills are remarkable. She makes her own timetable. She's homeschooled. I don't need to do anything with her. I still have to get after my older one to study, even though she's 20 years old and she's in college, because somewhere she thinks, oh, I'm smart. My mother said I was smart. But the younger one heard, I love the way you make your timetable. I like the way you've set out your own schedule. I like the way that you're making your own tests and you're testing yourself. Our voices, even compassionate voices, can say the wrong things. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Adhir.
Right.
Mahrukh, there's a question here.
Yeah.
So I think Vivek is asking that it could also be that in some context, earlier context, it could also be that the school person was talking based on her own fixed mindset.
Quite possible. Quite possible.
Yeah.
Quite possible.
Also, Mahrukh, if I may, like we said, the fixed mindset gets formed, right? It's over time, and like Vijay observed also, that in different situations, like, we are different, you
Yes,
are different in
yes.
personal situation, different in your professional situation.
Right.
So how do you compare this with the Enneagram, Mahrukh, if you have any knowledge of the
I
Enneagram?
am not, I don't know the Enneagram well enough. I don't know it well enough. I'm
Okay,
sorry, Priya, I
no
won't be able
problem.
to answer that question.
No problem.
But I think it's an interesting question. Maybe we should ask Suman to debrief on that. Yeah.
So there was a similar question earlier, Mahrukh. Someone had asked, is there any connection between mindset and where we are on Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Ladder, actually, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So mindset, there's a lot of interesting correlation with confidence and self-esteem. If you, I'm trying to do the correlation as we speak. So when you're operating largely from a fixed mindset, you may be very confident, but that confidence is very fragile, right? The minute you fail, that confidence shatters. Then your next success, again, you feel confident again. On the other hand, in a growth mindset, your confidence, your self-esteem is not dependent on the outcome every single time, because you believe that you have the capability to improve the next time, right? And so, I mean, that's as best as I can see the correlation. And of course, I'm assuming that as you move more towards the growth mindset, you are moving towards self-actualization, if you want to make that correlation.
Some more reflections coming in, Mahrukh. Mindset is a choice, is one takeaway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's always a scope of shifting to a growth mindset. Fixed mindset is not actually cement fixed.
Absolutely. That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway. It's a continuum. We can move. The minute we choose, we can move. Yeah.
There's another one, which is fixed mindset will always be there depending on situation, though we want growth mindset that time. In that kind of a situation, how do we convert our thought to growth mindset?
So like I said, it's about becoming aware of your triggers. Nobody is ever completely growth or completely fixed. We are constantly moving up and down that continuum. The minute I realize what is it that triggers me, when do I get pushed? When do I start feeling anxious? When do I feel stressed out? When do I feel I can't do this? Right? And if I recognize my triggers, even just the act of recognizing it and becoming aware of it can help you start shifting. Carol Dweck did a talk at Google once, and somebody asked her exactly this question. Now, how do I actually make this transition? What's the first thing I should do? And she said, don't do anything for 2 whole weeks. Just observe yourself. Observe all the times that you get triggered, and make a note of what are the common patterns that are emerging. You'll automatically start realizing what you need to do differently.
Right.
Mahrukh, is there a place in life where you need to have a fixed mindset?
Super. So there two. Again, I'm drawing largely from this book and from my own experiences. So there are 2 places that Carol Dweck says a fixed mindset may actually help you. She says sexual orientation and aging. So she says, as far as sexual orientation is concerned, she says it's important to accept yourself as you are. Yeah, it's not about improving or moving to another side. It's important to just remain and accept that this is what you are. She also says this is true of aging. And she says it's important to accept that there will be changes and there will be things. And in an attempt to so-called operate from growth mindset, it's not about reversing those changes. Of course, you can exercise and you can eat healthy and all that. But at some stage, it's very detrimental to say, start doing things like, having Botox or, she says you can't fight certain processes beyond a point. Yeah, so these are the 2 she is specifically talked about. I don't know. There could be others. Maybe somebody else would have that answer.
Thank you.
Right. Mahrukh, there's another question here, which is, What are the biggest watch outs for those whose default orientation is growth mindset?
Biggest watch outs for those who are in growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to understand the question.
Yeah. Vijay, would you like to share more about where this question came from?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what's the flip side, right? Is there anything, that could, like we saw with the fixed mindset, right? There are things that could limit us. Similarly, with growth mindset, is there anything at all that could sort of go, that could, give it a thumbs down?
Right. So Carol Dweck talks about a false growth mindset, where she says you believe you're operating from a growth mindset, but you may not actually be doing that. So you need to really ask yourself. So, for example, someone who's constantly challenging themselves, constantly doing new things, constantly, climbing every mountain, crossing every sea, always keeps challenging themselves. Is there something like too much growth mindset? The question is that why is this person feeling the need to do that? Is it a need to constantly keep proving to themselves that, they can push and learn and keep doing new things? Or is it truly a genuine curiosity and love of exploration? So really it's about what is the intent behind those actions? What is driving that? That is, while you're expanding, you're challenging, is it to prove something or is it to explore? That's how I could answer your question.
Thanks, Mahrukh. That's a fantastic response. Thank you.
Thank you.
One last question before we wind up. Yeah. How do we bring about shift in the mindset of a person?
Mindset of another person.
Yeah.
So we did talk about certain things. Process praise versus outcome praise. How much are we focusing on outcome? How much are we focusing on appreciating, catching them doing the right things and appreciating those rather than focusing on the outcomes? Are we actually getting them to reflect what their triggers are? Get them a coach, send them to CFY. But no, seriously, sometimes I think also we have to look at our own mindsets first. Ask ourselves, are we doing anything to trigger those fixed mindsets? If not, and you can see it, maybe share learnings, talk about triggers, talk about what triggers that anxiety in that person. Getting them to believe that failure is also an option. It's okay to fail. Learning is much more important, much more expansive, much more sustainable.
Right. So there is another question. If we can make a quick one.
Yeah. Okay. One more question. Then I have a little little story before we close.
Okay. So how do you implement a growth mindset in an organization context?
That's an entire webinar in itself.
Yeah.
And Rekha knows because we actually put a whole lot of organizational slides which we removed.
Yeah.
How do you implement growth mindset? What are we talking about growth mindset? We're saying the ability to learn, willingness to explore, being agile, being innovative. Am I penalizing people when they make a mistake? Or am I encouraging to explore and push their boundaries? Am I valuing pure talent or am I valuing potential to grow? Am I allowing people opportunities to develop and learn and make mistakes and go up the learning curve? Or am I saying these are the outcomes, all we value is the bottom line at the end of the day, live from quarter to quarter, shareholder value, that's all we talk. What are the conversations happening in the organization? What is top leadership role modeling? All these will set the tone of the organization, whether it's choosing to operate in fixed or growth. Most organizations will talk the right language. They may not always walk the talk, right? That's what we need to be very watchful for. If you're an organization that talks about innovation but penalizes mistakes, you're never going to be an organization that's going to actually, be innovative.
Right. Mahrukh?
Okay,
You have a story for us?
Yes, one little story. You know, I really liked this thing that I came across that talked about the law of wasted effort. Some of you may have seen it. And it says that in nature, there's a lot of wasted effort, right? So when the lion tries to make his kill, only 25% of the time he's successful, 75% of the time he fails. Half the seeds that fall on the ground are eaten up by birds. Majority of the water, the rain, falls in oceans, right? So my God, nature is a very poor performer, isn't it? Right? So much of failure, not acceptable. Why do we beat ourselves up so much and have so much fear of failure when nature is showing us that it's okay to fail and come up, rise up again and again? A very beautiful quote that says, a ship in a harbor will be very safe, but won't go anywhere, right? So with that, the year has started. Let's all try to move a little bit along this continuum. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahrukh. That was a wonderful session. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And I'm sure everyone is going to take away a lot of value from this. And I think we are going to need it, right? A growth mindset to deal with whatever 2021 has to offer us. So thank you, Mahrukh. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you for patient hearing. And I hope you had fun.